discussion about really writing for strings, and so, but I mean, it really applies to a lot of other things, and you know, I'm a big believer that, and you have to understand why. I'm a big believer that if you can find a way to use either stringed instruments or orchestral instruments in pop music, you fulfill a spectrum that much more. Because if you were to look at the frequency spectrum and how it applies to a full orchestra versus how it applies to a rock band or a pop band, the pop band has a more narrow band frequency-wise, and all the instruments are kind of filling in the ranges, but they don't completely fulfill all the ranges in the in-between. Whereas when you look at an orchestra, the orchestra was essentially designed to cover every note range from all the way down to the low end, all the way up to as high as it could go, which means that if you write parts for every instrument, essentially you fulfill the whole spectrum, which is why when you take pop music and you add things like strings, you add things like a full orchestra, you get that much more fulfillment. So, you know, like that, having that in there is very, very good for the overall tone. So that's why we're going to do, you know, we start off with string writing, and because we have to talk about string writing by itself, and then we move to string writing with, or like orchestral writing with how it works with pop and modern music. Right. Hey, bud. Here, I have a couple things for you. So did you bring your hard drive today, or flash drive?
Yes.
Okay, you don't have to give it to me now, but later on I have video from the classes that you missed, and I'm taking video now of class, and then this is your syllabus, and that's a handout that we went over. Oh, and here's the sign sheet.
That's crazy about those strings that we took, because I've been trying to, like, I love strings, I just can't get them the way incorporated within the beat or whatever I'm trying to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless it's something like a simple, you know what I mean, dun, dun, something like that. But as far as like killing the strings, I can't get it all the way. So this would be cool.
Yeah, okay, so we'll kind of land. I mean, in some of this, so again, these are two different functions and two different formats for how we're going to do this. So the ease of, okay, so Sibelius versus, and especially for what we're going to do, we're going to develop arpeggios, and the reason we're going to start with arpeggios is because the arpeggios will create the framework for the rhythmic foundation, essentially. So we need to talk about how we develop the rhythmic foundation. Problem with arpeggios, so the positive of the arpeggios is they develop a really solid foundation rhythmically. Problem with arpeggios is they outline chords. So if you don't know what chords you're using, or if you don't know which chords you're supposed to use, this is where you have to begin to identify them. And so by definition, arpeggios essentially are leaping outlines of the chord. And essentially it's like when you hear it go, ba 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 ba, that kind of feel. But they're very, very beneficial when it comes to these outlining of these sections. Now, on a note by note, something that you guys missed on the last day that we did stuff, we were moving around some of the we had an arpeggiated phrase, and we were moving around from the cello to the bass to the violins and the violas, and looking at the difference in that by adding them in different octaves, what do they do and how do they sound. When it comes to Sibelius, technically you can literally, with Sibelius, go click, 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 copy, paste, you already have an arpeggiated phrase, and you can just copy, paste, and move it around. Because for Sibelius, it's notation that you're writing versus anything that you actually have to play. Where when you go to Reason, you can do both, but playing it actually ends up being a little bit more effective because of the fact that when you writing it in isn't as easy and clean, and you have to dictate, like you have to tell it, okay, well, how long are each note compared to, note by note. Right. Where in Sibelius, every note you make, there's like a toolbar frame, and if you just leave it all in the same, like typically arpeggios are literally when you're doing arpeggiations. Well, they'll be like quarter notes, but they'll be notes of the same value, and it's because those notes of the same value, sorry, bud, because they're notes of the same value, the
variation.
Yeah, because they're not changing. It means that you can just pick this one note off the palette and use the same note over and over and over again, the same note in different notation, groups. Versus in Reason, where when you're writing it with a pencil tool, you have to identify what the length of the note is going to be every time. So it kind of it changes a little bit of how it works. So we're going to take two looks at this. First, let's go to Sibelius real quick. And let's go ahead and in your Sibelius, I'm going to walk you through some of these basics, but so we're going to start off in Sibelius, and what I want you to do is we can very simply go to, let's see, should be a string group here, hopefully in quartet form.
Select a blank.
No, I actually wanted to see if there was. No, I don't see one. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to start with a blank. I was hoping to see that if there was a quartet. Sorry about that, Ed. How's it going?
It's going good. Table chairs are like all over the place. Somebody doing something.
Yeah, there's another class in there doing so you can just put everything back or whatever you want to do.
I can. Pretty good.
Thanks, man. All right, go ahead and hit blank score. You'll see it look like this. So when you get into a blank score, it's going to ask you. So don't hit create just yet. It's going to ask you a couple things. Now here's one thing we do have to decide is, are the arpeggios that we're going to create going to be a 4/4 or a 6/8 feel? So is it going to be 1 2 3 4 5 6, or is it just going to be 1 2 3 4 2 2 3 4? And it really changes. It'll change how the
Can we keep it in 4/4?
arpeggios work. Yeah, we can keep it in 4/4. Let's take a look at 4/4. We might want to take a case. We might still want to take a case at crack at 6/8 and see the difference. Bless you, a little later. But let's start in 4/4. Bless you again. Let's start in 4/4. So you're just literally when you go down here, you're just gonna say, all right, well, a couple things we have to do, and let me see here because I don't think the. Okay, right where it says document setup and it says change instruments. Go ahead and hit change instruments. It's going to ask which instruments we want to add to the score because right now it's a blank score. So this is going to get a little tricky. We're going to go to, you can close the window that it's in. You should see this drop down. We're going to go to strings.
Where is that again?
If you go to change instruments, go to strings. And then we're just going to do something a lot like what we did the other day. We're going to go with a violin 1, a violin 2, a viola, and what they call the violoncello here, but it's really just the cello. So it's just these 4. These 4 make up your basic string quartet. Although you could have different versions of, this. Obviously, we left out the bass. But you'll see why. All you're going to do is once you get those 4, you can go and just hit add to score. How are we doing there? You guys okay with that? Did you guys get that far?
Yes, sir.
Mike, you okay there?
Yeah, let me make a new one because I opened it up before I selected that.
Paul, you good, bud?
Yeah.
Just let me know when you get back there.
Alright, I'm good now. I selected
Open up one more, bro. Yeah, change instruments. There you go.
Alright.
Access score don't press okay.
Alright.
All right, so here we go. So once we hit OK, now we have these parts laid out. We can select 4/4, which is by default. You can see that it's listed here by default. The only catch here, you can see that the clefs are already decided for you. You can see there's 2 treble clefs, and then there's a tenor clef and the bass clef. And one of the problems that we see here because of the clef usage, and I don't think we get the... option and make adjustments down below. Because of the clef usage, you have to kind of keep an eye on where C is supposed to be, like which notes fall inside of your key, because these clefs represent different pitches on the staff. So an easy way to do that, I always tell people, hey, look, if you're not comfortable with bass clef or with alto or tenor clef, which a lot of times viola is written in a modified clef form, so it's not in standard treble clef. Write your parts on treble. Write your parts on the violin part. Copy paste them into the viola, it'll convert it. Copy paste it into the bass clef down in the cello, it'll convert it. Does that make sense? So it'll modify it for you. If you just write it in treble, I mean, even then you could go in and re-modify these back. You could write the whole part. So you could say, hey, you know what? Let's write the part for viola and cello in treble clef. Let's just adjust. You can adjust these after we open this, and then you could go back at the very end and convert them back, and they'll shift back to where they're supposed to be. So the problem is, obviously, you can't hand this off to a violist or cello or cellist and say, hey, play this in treble clef, because, well, technically cello learns both, but they're more appropriately positioned here. And the reason why they're even put this way is because the bass clef offers a shifted to a lower range option, which means when you're in the sweet spot in treble clef for the cello, you're actually below the staff. And it's really hard to read for them because everything falls below down here, not on the lines. So what they do is they shift it for treble so it fits more on the line, so it makes more sense to them. And they do the same thing for the viola because it's, again, shifted downward. So, there's some stuff you're going to see there. We don't have to, if we look over here, we don't have to pick our tempo marking necessarily. We can choose that later. We also don't have to choose our key signature at this time, but what we can do, let's just say, let's go to no key signature. Let's leave it at C major, nice and easy. At this point, you can also decide to title it, whatever you're going to title it, put your name on it, put copyright, whatever your name, or however you want to do that, 2016, your name. So you could just say, hey, look, this is whatever song title you want to call it. So I'm going to call it for now Arp Rhythms. Oops. And, of course, going to put your name on it. And then copyright this year, your name. Oops. Nothing too difficult. And then you can hit create once you're there.
So just select the one that has the C on it?
Yeah, if you could do the no key signature one and then do C major. It'll put you into essentially.
Right of the 4/4?
No, not that. No, that one. This one is different. Sorry, this one is still a time measure. This essentially is the same thing as 4/4. It's just another way to mark it.
So where do I?
Down below where it says key signature set. There's a drop down. You're going to go to no key signature and then choose C major. Problem is in this thing, okay, so this is like where it's different. In Reason, you can write in whatever key you want. You can go back and forth between them. It doesn't care. In Sibelius, because it's notation software, if you choose a specific key signature, it's going to map out the whole thing in that key signature until you change it. So you want to make sure you choose a no key signature so we can write it in a non-key signature form. So essentially C major. Did you find it, Mike?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you can go ahead and hit create. It'll do its thing. Okay, now once I show you this, you may go, oh, this looks easy. Why don't we do everything in this? And the reason why is because it sounds very poor. This doesn't have the greatest sound. You can load sounds too. What's really crazy is I can load, like on my Sibelius, I can load Native Instruments plugins on here and roll Native Instruments sounds to Sibelius. The problem is that they don't follow the technique markings and they don't follow the dynamic markings. So if I made a crescendo in the phrase, if I'm using Sibelius's engine, they crescendo correctly. If I use Native Instruments or another plugin, third party, it doesn't crescendo, it just flatlines, which makes it really dull. So it's like you're like kind of going, well, in one version there's no dynamics, but it sounds better because it has better sounds. In the other versions, the sounds are horrible, but the dynamics are there. So like you're kind of weighing it out. But remember that the reason it sounds that bad is because this is actually made by Pro Tools, or It's made by Avid, but it wasn't originally Inception. The Inception wasn't by Avid; it was by another company. But it's owned by Avid. It's not designed as a platform, a DAW platform. It's designed as a notation platform to actually hand off to a real orchestra. One of the reasons that they honestly, I'll be honest, I think one of the reasons that they designed it as something that allows you to have plugins, but not full use of really great sounds, is because it's not designed to replace an orchestra. You know what I mean? And like if you were to write on this and it sounded amazingly like an orchestra, then it takes away your need to ever really hand it to an orchestra. Does that make sense? And it takes away your real desire to go spend 20 grand to hire a bunch of people and rent out a studio for real strings.
You can't take this and use it as a plugin inside Pro Tools and then bust the output to it. Like
you can use it as a rewire in Pro Tools. But what you can't do with the rewire, well, and that's the thing, you could use it as a rewire in Pro Tools, but what it's doing is it's rewiring MIDI that would then be sent back to Pro Tools, and then it would play your MIDI instruments through Pro Tools. But again, you still end up with the same issue. You'd have to then go with Pro Tools and automate all your dynamics, and you'd have to automate all of your technique changes. If you're using it that way, like if you're going to use the MIDI in Pro Tools or the software instruments in Pro Tools to play it back.
Is there any instance why you would want to rewire it to Pro Tools?
Only if you were design. I mean, because there is a notation editor in Pro Tools already, and you don't have to rewire it. And essentially, it's Sibelius, like the low-end Sibelius version. The only reason you might want to do both is if you really bounce it back and forth between the notation on the score, things that you were editing as you were going. Like if you were like on the precipice of handing this off, maybe it would help you to go back and forth. But what I find is I find that if you're writing for a real ensemble, stay in Sibelius. Don't waste your time with Pro Tools because all this is going to be replaced by a real ensemble. You know what I mean? And if you're only going to do it synthetically, do it in Reason or Pro Tools or Logic, or do it into some DAW that has a great sound of the synthetics. Forget the notation. Does that make sense? Because there's no reason to do the notation unless you're really going to hand it off for somebody to play.
Right.
But what I want to show you here is one of the easy parts about the notation that is beneficial is doing things like what we're about to do, where we do these outlined arpeggios, which are really simple. So you're in it right now. Let's go do a couple things here. So what happens here is there's this little keypad, and if you don't have your keypad up, this keypad is literally the outlining of your keypad on your keyboard. So like these keys are actually assigned to those things. So like if you go down and hit different things on your keypad, it switches back and forth between what's going on up above. And so it's kind of interesting how this works out with your keys, but it allows you to cycle some of this stuff. And then you toggle these tabs at the top to do a couple different things. These are basically just fast key options. But this is where you choose your notation. If you lose this by chance, you're going to go to View. Go to View in the ribbon at the top, and you're just going to look for where it says Panels. It's kind of hidden where it says Panels, and then there's keypad there. You also have an additional transport you could use. There's an additional keyboard you could use. You can actually do video in here now, which is great. But if you were to go ahead and have this keypad up, well, here's how we can work this out. It's pretty simple how this works, but there's a couple weird situations with it. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and build these 16th, and this is where it's going to be different. I want to build 16th note arpeggiated rhythms. Or actually, you know what? Let's build 8th notes so they're simple, and then we can change them to 16ths. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose the little notation with the single flag here. And then notice as soon as you click on it, you go back to the bar, any one of these bars, and all of a sudden you see, oh, yeah, we're ready to rock. So what we're going to do is we're just going to outline some basic rhythms. And I'm going to make these rhythms all the same in the first phrase, and then I'm going to change them in the second phrase. You kind of see what the difference here is, okay? So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to do all 8th notes on C, okay? And you could follow and do the same thing. So all you're going to well, there's a couple ways to do it too. You could do it this way, or you could go, the keyboards aren't linked, I think, because Reason's taking it over. If we link the keyboard, you could do it off the keyboard, but you're literally just going to click click, like move to the right, click, follow that so far. And what you can actually do, let's see, where's the hotkey for this?
I can't find where on the toolbar is the keyboard. In this scroll?
No. It's in the corner. It's in the corner for me too. So the single flag is an eighth note.
Yes, sir. So this is what I'd like for you to do first. Okay. Again, you know, we're writing this in, kind of making it simple. What we're going to do is we're going to choose a single note, and then we're going to change it. We're going to shift it a little bit. So once you, let me know when you got this. Raise your hand. You got this. You got this so far? Paul, you almost there? You're not lost, are you?
Yeah, got it.
You good, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now we just have a basic rhythm. Okay, and this is kind of an easy way to start because we're just building these arpeggiated rhythms. Right now it's not arpeggiated. Right now it's a single note instance. The beauty of the single note instance, and this is what I like about it, is if you build the rhythmic structure first and decide, okay, this is the rhythm I would like to use, then you can move the arpeggios anywhere you want by just changing the notes. Not too difficult. The one thing about arpeggios that you have to consider is arpeggios must repeat. So, like, it's for them to be to make a stable rhythmic foundation. They can't just go everywhere. They have to literally make some sort of repetitious motion, which means that like a good example is, and you don't have to do this, but if I was to do this, and I just decided, okay, well I'm going to go, or maybe I want to have it walk down so that when it repeats. This is known as an up, down, up, down. And what that means is it'll outline a chord, 1, 3, 5 of the major C, and it walks back down, 3, 1, 3, 5. When you listen to this, and the only really sad part about their transport is it's horrible. It doesn't do what Pro Tools does in terms of loop function. So you're going to have to hit the play ribbon at the top, hit the back button, and you get spacebar. Pretty simple, right? Nothing too complex. We can change or shift how these are working in terms of pitch-wise, but notice they're still doing 1, 3, 5, right? So C, E, G. Now, and notice the rhythm again. If I go back to what I did with the rhythm, I'm going to jump back. Actually, I'm going to take these back, okay? So I'm going to take it all
Can I
back.
ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Is it safe to say that 1 is still 0 or no?
Well, when you count half steps, and you say, so let's say we go to the 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first, like when you count your half steps between notes, your first move on a half step level, or even on a whole step level, is considered a 1. So if I said move up one, whole step or move up 1 half step, it's still considered 1. But when you outline the notes by numbers, when you actually call out the notes in the scale by numbers, the scale, it's a 7-note scale, the first note is always considered the 1, and there's no 0 note in that instance. So when you're counting half steps, yeah, that no movement from the first is 0.
Okay.
Or it really could be considered an octave if you were jumping up the octave, but remember that note is still called a 1 when it's outlining those notes.
Okay.
First note in your scale, it's always known as a 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's a little bit, yeah, just kind of, they're different there. And
Gotcha.
so these are all like, in C, these are all the 1, right? So here's what I'm going to do, though. Here's what I'm going to do that's different, okay? So you guys got this so far. I'm going to copy and paste this, all right? You guys are familiar with Command-C, Command-V. I'm going to copy-paste this. And I'm going to go to the next bar, click on the whole next bar. If you click on towards the top, it'll highlight it all in blue. And now I'm going to hit Command-V. So now I have this twice. The difference here is again, I want to create rhythmic structure, and then I'm going to outline the arpeggio. Now this seems a little slower right now, but once you get familiar with this actually goes really fast. Yes?
Is there a smart tool?
No. Did you already command? Were you able to just command C, command V?
Because when I
How do you
did it,
select- how do you
So
select-
at the top of the bar, when you go to the top of the bar, click it so all of it highlights in blue. Just hit Command C and then go to the next bar, click it at the top of the bar so it highlights in blue and hit Command V. It'll just copy paste that. Does that make sense? Command C for copy, Command V for paste. All right, you guys get that far?
no, I actually didn't. I
Here, let me
think
see.
when I
You click at the top of the bar. Does it go? Oh, you haven't gotten the notes in.
No, I did get the notes in, but when I pressed it on the top of the bar, it made another note.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I see what's going wrong. So here's what you have to do. When you are in the keypad, you always have to return. If you hit escape on your keyboard. Of course, you just hit it one more time. Oh no, it did kick you back. What you need to do, or hover over the notes. Oh, it did kick you back. There it is. See when you hit escape, now you're on a cursor.
Gotcha.
If you go click on the keypad, and pick a note, and then go back over the bar, you'll see you now have a note. You have to hit escape to get out of that note. Otherwise, it leaves you, like the only thing it leaves you doing is putting notes on the bar. So if you hit escape, it'll go back to the cursor. Then you can highlight the whole bar in blue by grabbing it, and then hit Command C and Command V.
All right.
So I'm sorry, I missed that step for you.
How do I get these bad boys off of there?
Oh, you can just replace it with notes. If you ever end up accidentally putting rests in, just go drop your notes in, and you'll be fine.
All right, there we go.
That make sense? Yeah. If you drop your notes in, it'll take their place automatically.
Gotcha.
And then you can hit Command C, Command V. You're just a little lower, like inside the bar. There you go. Command C, Command V. Unfortunately, there's not like a dupe,
There we go.
right? Yeah, and then actually before you're happy with the notation, you can command, because we're actually going to change things on the second bar. So it's kind of interesting. Have you guys seen native instruments
Yes.
plugins?
Seen it.
Okay. What they do, it's funny what they do in native instruments. If you go watch the videos on some of the string stuff that they put out, they literally what they do is they prefab rhythms for you. But you're paying for the sound, but a lot of people are actually paying for those prefab rhythms. Well, you can make all these rhythms yourself. You could essentially establish or create an arpeggiated palette rhythmically, where if you created a whole dock full of arpeggios, you could always just go from there, copy paste those ideas, right? Those essentially they're sketches. We talked about sketches, which are just idea forms, and just copy paste those into any session that you want to use. You could export these as MIDI, and anytime you want an arpeggio, just import that MIDI, and you can just start from there instead of having to build every arpeggio from scratch. And so,
Do people choose to still use the native instruments
oh yeah.
because it's already there, or they don't feel like they're not familiar with some
Both. Yes. Some of it's they don't understand it, or they're not very familiar with it. They don't understand how to make those rhythmic passages. The other thing is it's just easy. Downside, the thing I don't like about native instruments, the problem that I have with native instruments is the way that they do these sound sets is they'll go in and they'll have an orchestra actually or a string group record this exact phrase. And the problem with it is that if I don't want this exact phrase and I want this modified phrase, what they do is they build the engine so that you can like mix and match the phrases. But there's only so many phrase sets that are customizable. But what if I want something like I want to make this be my own? It's harder because you can't make it as unique. You're kind of stuck in some of the phrase settings. So understanding how to do these is crucial to understanding how to get through this like arpeggiated point. Okay, so right now we haven't done anything too crazy. Okay, but now here we want to do some changes. Okay, so there's a couple things we could do. Number one, what we can do to this rhythm is we can dot okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this first note here, and I'm going to choose this dotted note form. So see where this dotted note form comes in? It's essentially adding a dot to the eighth. Now, what happens here is when you dot the eighth, do you guys remember dotted note forms?
It's like,
Oh, hold on one second. Trigger your brain for this information real quick. Hey, bud.
I know it. Oh, I don't know it.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, you able to run these back? Okay. Okay, so dotted forms, very exciting. Okay, dotted forms do this, all right? I'm gonna put this on the board. On a dotted note, this is an eighth note here, okay, that we are using. So we're using a single flag eighth note. When you notice when you tie them together, they all banner together and they tie that bar. So when there's two of them, they're just tied like this with a single bar across this thing. So this takes the place of the flag. But that rhythm, this rhythm essentially means that this is an eighth note, okay? And if you need a rehasher on this, whole note, half note, it takes 2 halves to make a whole, right? It takes 4 quarters. Sorry, that looks really crappy, but it takes 4 quarters to make, or I'm sorry, it takes 2 quarters, sorry, it takes 2 quarters to make. So notice we're just dividing these. It takes 2 quarters to make a half, and then when we split these up, for each one it takes 2 eighths. So what that means is, if I were to fulfill a whole note, and that's why I'm writing it this way. You guys remember seeing this chart
Yeah.
in your keyboarding class?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had your other composition class if they rehash this, but what that basically means is that means that in order to fulfill a full bar, how many eighth notes do we need to fulfill the whole bar? How many do we need in the first measure?
Yeah.
8,
Hey.
right? Because and the key giveaway, like when they were establishing the terminology, they were using 4/4. So when they say whole note, it's in 4/4. Whole note it fills the whole measure. Half note fills half the measure. Quarter note fills a quarter of a measure. Eighth note fills an eighth of a measure. So just like in fractions,
Right.
you need 8 eighths to make a measure.
Right. To make one measure.
Yeah, you need 16 sixteenths
Make a hole.
to make a whole. 32 30-seconds to make the whole. Now with that in mind, this is what happens, okay? So here's the little tree. Here's the note by itself. A dotted value, so like by definition, adding a dot, okay? The dotted value equals half
The whole.
half of whatever the note value is added to, added to whatever's there. So it's half of the note value added to whatever is already there. So if I said I want a dotted half note, what's half of a half note? And that's what's down here below, right? These are the divisions of them. Half of a half note is what?
5. If it was a whole, right? Half of a whole note would be half, so it'd be 5.5.
0.5. Yeah, but you won't have to think of it in terms of the math, but but in terms of these notes, like these notes, what's half of a half note?
8, right?
A fourth.
A 4.
A fourth, right? So half of a half note is the fourth, and then the half of a fourth note or a quarter note is an eighth, right? So half of a half note is a fourth. So if I add a dot to a half note, what it means is
Fourth note.
essentially, a quarter. It's going to be a quarter note. Essentially, this represents the dot represents a quarter note, and this one's a half. You add them together, and what do you get?
3/4.
Yeah, 3/4. 3/4 values. Make sense? So what that means is in this instance, you have 3/4 value, which means we're almost taking up the whole measure. What do I need if I had a dotted half note in a measure? What do I need? What room left if I wanted to add one more note? What would it be?
That point, right? To make up
Yeah.
a whole note again.
Well, you could if you add another point. You can only I'd say
That
this.
would only be half. You're right. You're right. That would only be half.
Yeah, and if you added, you can actually have multiple dots, but every time you add a dot, it's half of the value. So it actually diminishes as it goes. Like a double dotted would be adding a quarter plus an eighth, which would, and then if you add one more, it'd be a quarter plus an eighth plus a 16th. It gets crazy when you do that. So a lot of times you don't see a lot of it double dotted. But what's a standard note that fulfills this? If I'm saying that this together makes 3/4 of the measure, makes three quarter note beats, 3/4 of the measure, what's left? What's left?
One.
Almost. What's left? 1/1. I have 3/4. What's left?
1/3. No.
1/4.
1/4. What? 1/4 note's
That's
left.
right. Yep, 4/4.
Okay, so exactly 4/4, right? So in this instance, all that is left is a quarter note. So this fulfills a measure: a dotted half note because it's 3, and a quarter note. Follow me?
Yeah.
What we're gonna do with this rhythm, which I just put up on there, see the one I dotted up there? I dotted an eighth note. Okay, so it's an eighth note. Started out as an eighth note. What does the dot represent?
Half of that.
What is it?
Quarter.
What's half of an eighth note?
1/2.
No,
No.
it's in the subdivision category. So you keep going down. So-
1/16.
Yes, 1/16th. Okay, so that is an eighth note plus a 16th note. Okay, it's a pretty quick rhythm when you count it out. Like if you were to actually physically count that on the bar, that's where it gets a little confusing. We count. Actually, I'm gonna.
So anytime there's a dot, we're adding
Yes,
to the.
the previous note,
Gotcha.
half of its value. Yeah, if you want to make a note on that or a note on this
So-
real quick.
The note with the dot is what again?
That note with the dot is an eighth note with a dot, which means it's actually an eighth plus a 16th. It's not as easily divisible. It makes it a 3/16th note, but it's not easy for you to remember it that way. It's actually easier for you to remember it. Let me show you how you can remember this, and then I'll play it back for you.
Well, no, because I wanted to notate.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Next to it. So
So you were gonna write an eighth plus a 16th, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So let me actually let me see if I can
the
get this.
16th is the 2 dots that are upside down, right? Above the note to the left of it.
No, that is actually a rest. That one's a rest marking. So the rest markings look like these, like I don't know if you see them. Oh, you don't because they're not. Yeah, the rest markings, which means don't play, are these little flags. You'll see them here. Like there's a
Well, the 2 notes next to it
these
is
ones.
the 16th. That 2 right there, right? Is the 16th?
These are still eighths.
Oh.
It's weird. You don't ever see the dot. It represents a 16th, but you'll never see a 16th note here. Does that make sense? It's kind of
lets you know that that's what it's supposed to be.
exactly. It's just adding that additional value.
Okay.
Now, when I play it back for you, you're going to go, oh, that's what that sounds like.
Yep.
Because what it is it represents what we call syncopation. Whenever you hear syncopation requires dotted values typically. So, but let me show you something real quick, okay? This next part might be better or worse, okay? For better or for worse, for this. All right, let me just show you this one thing, just so you know how to count this out. This will simplify this, and then we'll get back to arpeggios, because I feel this might help you in the values.
It's like the 1 and the 2.
Exactly, the counting.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're counting the phrase, counting essentially establishes how, like if you were to write this on paper and you didn't have this, you'd have to understand how the counts work, okay? Now I already showed you how to fulfill the phrase. This is this tree right here is fulfilling the phrase, or fulfilling a measure. But how do you count these? And so like what happens is in the subdivisions of counting, you go, if it's quarter notes, or let's say you're playing the whole note, you're gonna hold it in 4/4, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. And that, so like when the metronome's playing, a lot of times if there's not a metronome, maybe there's a drum beat or a rhythm that's establishing where that measure is. But when you're playing a standard, whole note, you're gonna count. You're gonna hold that note and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's the whole note, right? If you're playing half notes, it's going to be, so like a half note is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter notes are going to be exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So ba, ba,
So there's a
ba,
pause in between them.
ba. Well, only the pause is I'll say this, if it's written in standard notation, if I wrote it like this, in standard notation, this is not legato, which means there is, even though there's not a rest, there's still a distinction between each one, which is just going to go ba, 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 ba. If I wanted it to be shorter, if I added a flag and I made all these eighth notes, I'd have to go in and add an eighth rest. And what would happen is I'd have to establish this eighth note rest. And then, I'm sorry, which way would it go? 1, 2, 3.
To complete the
Oh, I'm sorry.
measure, you
Yeah.
need 8.
Yeah, I essentially either 8 notes or 8 rests. Yeah, and actually, this is the 8th rest. I'm sorry.
So it'd be a note, rest, filling in the gap.
Exactly,
Missing
and it would be more like ba, ba, ba,
real,
ba, just
real,
real short or staccato,
right.
as they would call it. And so that would fulfill that. But we would be thinking in our mind when you're thinking it or playing it, you're literally going 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? Because you're fine. Because what would happen is if I did this,
And that would sound real stiff too, right?
yeah, it would sound pretty. Yeah, it would sound pretty.
Yeah.
But what if I did this? This is I don't know if you remember elementary school. This is a half rest.
Yeah.
Do you remember the whole rest? They always say the whole man takes his hat off, tips his hat to a woman. That's your whole rest.
Yeah.
This is your half rest. They're almost identical. It's just the
The hole is what you fall in. That's what she said.
Oh, okay, yeah. So one's upside down and one's
Right.
right side up, okay? But in this one, this is a half rest. The reason you need to understand the counting, it seems so simple. It's like, why would I need to understand the counting? But what if I had a rest for 2 beats? You'd have to literally go ba, ba. Make sense?
Yeah.
Or any other phrase that. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Once I get faster notes, 1, 2, 3, 4 represents quarter note downbeats. Once I get anything like 8ths or 16ths, what I need to do is I need to break it up. If I was doing 8ths, I will go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and because that represents 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So if I'm doing 8 notes, the reason I have to count the ands is because they're literally going to go 1,
Yeah.
right? And if we make some of those rests, that's when it gets complicated. If we said, hey, we're going to rest the first 2, we're going to play this one, we're going to rest this one. I mean, you can do any variation of it, it makes it really complicated, so you have to understand how the counting goes. If I go to 16ths, and you mentioned it before,
1 E and 2 E.
yeah, essentially we have to add, we're adding to this, and you, just like he said, you're going to go 1, and they say E, actually maybe I'll write it. Well, yeah, 1 E and 1 E and so the last one is So it's almost like there's 4 beats to each grouping.
Right.
1 E and 2, same thing, E and 3 E and 4 E and So like a lot of times when you're writing, like
Well,
when
that
people are,
should be 16, right?
yeah, essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
Yep.
16. Right? So this one represents 16. The one before it represents 8.
Would that be looked at as 1/16 and 1/8?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. These are 1/16 notes and these are 1/8 notes. Yeah, the divisions of the bar. And like the big thing is if you had to go further, a lot of times if you have to divide shorter, what you'll do is you'll have to sub break up the next grouping. A lot of times you're not going to face 30 seconds. You know, so there's a subdivision for the next grouping, but a lot of times when you get that fast, instead of making you read 30 seconds, they just change the tempo marking so that the bar, they want that tempo, but instead of having you play 30 seconds inside of that phrase, they duplicate that tempo so that it's in a means where it makes those 30 seconds now considered 16ths. They're played at the same tempo, but by adjusting the tempo marking, duplicating it essentially, they alleviated the fact that you have to play 30-second notes.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of times you don't have to deal with it beyond it. The reason you need to know this is because what we're about to do, you're going to have to be able to count the and 1 E and up. So like, great example. I just wrote a quarter or a eighth note, a dot, what they call a dotted eighth note. Okay. Dotted eighth note with the eighth note with the dot, right? So I put in an eighth note with the dot. Technically, this is the eighth grouping, right? But I put in an eighth note with the dot. Now, keep in mind where in the eighth group, where the plus is, the E falls, so this E falls in this gap, this falls in this gap. So anytime you're not using 16ths, you don't have to count 1 E and you could go 1 and 2, which means if half the phrase is written in eighth notes and the other half of the phrase is written in 16th notes, you could go 1 and 2 and 3 e and 4 e and when you're counting it, because you're trying to keep on time with the phrasing, but you don't always have to use. So like if I had a whole measure of 1, 2, 3, 4 e and that's exactly how it would spell out. Now, what's weird about this is the easy way to think about it is you have to mentally voice the count in your head, like if you're singing. Great example. You're singing. Mentally voice the counts in your head to the rest. Sing the counts that are notes.
Yeah.
So you would go 4 e and if the note was 16ths on the 4. So you mentally count in your head what's a rest, and you verbally count what's not. Now, the beauty of us putting it into notation is you could sit there while you're working on it. You can verbally count all of it because it only counts what you put in as a note. But when you're thinking about this, I created a dotted eighth note. So my eighth note value, my first eighth note value covers, actually I'll put it over to the left a little bit. If I'm breaking it down, and I have to break it down to the 16th, why? Because I have a dot. I saw her. Okay.
Do you know when Mark's coming in?
He should be here today.
Because people are here to see him, and it says 8 on his door.
Yeah, he should be here today. He hasn't sent any word.
Okay.
Check your email. You should just email Deb.
Okay.
Ask her what time he's coming in today. Okay. So I started with an eighth note. Okay. My eighth note on the 16th grid takes the place of 1 and the E. Okay? Because in this one, each eighth note is 1 and 2 and, which means the next eighth note would be and on the and. So my eighth note by itself takes 1 E, but then I also have the 16th, right? The dotted represents 16th because it's half the value. It's going to take the place of the and, but it's not going to take the place of the So what happens is I have a choice here. So this guy's going to take the place of this. Essentially, it's going to the first note. And these are tied together, so these aren't two notes. So this is just one note tied together. So when you play it, it actually goes 1 E and then there's another note that follows. So you could make this a rest. The catch here is by creating this, and that's the weird part about these phrase sets. When I was new to this notation, I was getting confused like crazy on this part. So I'll just specify it. The notation helps you when you do it here, but I'll just kind of tell it to you now. In your pairing groups, you're only allowed to pair notes together, like how they were stemmed together. These notes are tied together with the stem.
Right.
You're only allowed to stem notes together that fall inside of the same grouping. Just as you see the counts here grouped off,
Right.
they have to fall inside the same grouping in like this pattern. If for some reason, well, let's say you had a note, the next note that started on the was supposed to be an eighth note. It can't be an eighth note here. It can have an eighth note value, but it has to be more than one note because it's in the wrong group pair, which means it would have to, essentially what's left. If I said 1 E and what's left here? Okay, what does the L represent? Value one. Note value one. Nope.
16.
Yes, exactly. Why? Because this is the 16th grid, and once I go 1 E and those are all 16ths, which means what's left here is this has to be a 16th note, double flat.
Gotcha.
So, like when I make this rhythm, this has to be a 16th note double flat.
So what would you follow that?
You could do anything after this, but if I said, let's just say I wanted this to be an eighth note value, I would have to make this another 16th note flat. I can't tie these together that way, but if I tie them together with an actual notation tie, like a lot of times you use, this is a tie. What they say is this is a tie, and if you do an overall arching, it's a slur.
What about if the bar that connects them goes upside down and like they're upside down, their feet in the air type?
That's fine, but these are not allowed to be connected. Just because they're like the notes aren't allowed to be connected because the groupings.
So it goes to the next measure.
Yeah, or it's still inside the same measure. It falls outside of that grouping of divisions, subdivisions.
Okay.
It's kind of weird, right? But it's that subgrouping that when it jumps off that page, these can't be thrown in together.
So with the
Because you only have so much space for each note to
Yeah.
fit in that measure.
Exactly.
So with that right there, how would we say that? Is it
So this would be with this one right
linear
here.
too?
Yeah, it would go. Well, it's hard to tell. here, better off if you did this. Yeah, if you did this. This would be our 16th. You would get to go one. If you had sung it, it would go
Gotcha.
right? Because it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because it's almost like you're counting 1 E and then it would carry on to that second beat, and it would stop right at the E. So there'd be a rest at the E. So in the subdivisions, it gets a little hard because you have to think the rhythm, and then you have to perform the rhythm
Right.
simultaneously. It's a little easier when you're notating it because the reason you need to know this is just so that you don't end up with uneven bars, or why I'm about to show you with the arpeggio why it's about to do what it does.
You know, when I write, I don't always follow the bar.
And that's fine.
That's good.
Because the only downside to it is that when you don't fall on the bar and you go to notate it, you get a lot more of this.
Right, and it splits up some phrases.
Yeah, which is fine. Most vocals, like when you do vocals to songs, almost all vocals either start before the bar or they start after the bar, or even if they start on the bar, the rhythms that follow are usually syncopated because they have way more attitude than they would if they just were straight. It'd be a boring song. Yeah, actually, I'll tell you, it'd be a hymnal. That's what hymnals did. If you guys ever heard hymnals, and if you ever saw a hymnal, you went to a church that used hymnals, like you look at their measures, they're literally just like this. A lot of the rhythms are just like, and there's no syncopation to the lyric, or the melody, and that's why it's like so
Bland, like,
yeah, it's like square. It just doesn't have that modern feel. But that's how they used to do a lot of the things back then. Just make it simple and the whole point was so that everybody even people didn't know music could sing.
when I took that one class with, what's that big guy that teaches piano and guitar? He used to teach keyboards, when we first got our keyboards. Mark.
Oh, Mark, yeah.
He said the greatest thing to noise or music is silence, because that's when you do the breakdowns and the changes.
It's true. Yeah. Well, all the rests essentially outline the rhythmic patterns, because without them, it's just a continuation of constant sound. Yeah, that's very true. So what's going to happen here is when I do this dotted rhythm, the big thing here is that we're required because we did the dotted rhythm here. Something has to be in this spot. It could be a rest. It could either be, this is what the rest would look like. It'd be a double flag. It's like a little dot with two flags and a stem. It would either be the rest or it would be the note. In the arpeggio form that I'm going to show you, I'm going to use the note form. Okay. So check out what we're going to do here. This is what makes these way more interesting. So you heard the arpeggiated rhythmic phrase that I started to build. It was kind of bland. Like, I'll go play it for you again. This is what it was. Right? I mean, kind of bland, right? But when we take and add a dotted rhythm in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, there's a dotted rhythm. Notice it already threw up a the 16th rest for me. I want to replace that, so I added the dotted rhythm. I'm going to have to go to the keypad. Oops. One of the things you have to do, okay, so this is the downside. See how I'm highlighted on this note? If I hit any note on this keypad, it's going to change it to whatever note value I choose here, so I have to hit escape first. Make sure I'm not highlighted on that note. I'm going to go and choose the 16th note value, and I'm going to drop it right in where this rest is. And this is what it looks like. This is kind of crazy. This is what it looks like to have. This is what it looks like to have the dotted value attached to the 16th. It's a little different. So what they did is, this is when you're tying two 16ths together, or when you're tying two 8s, it's a single bar. When you tie two 16ths together, and the only reason they do this, it doesn't mean you play these tied together legato. It means that they're just tied together so they're organized. It's just to organize it for visual ease. And when you do a dotted value, what they do a lot of times is they'll just say, oh, okay, well, like in this case, the dot is a 16th. So this note at the end has to be a 16th, and instead of making it separate, they just do a half bar. So essentially what you're looking at is here's a dotted eighth with a 16th. So what we can do with this is on this phrase, I'm just going to play from selection here. Notice the rhythm that was just developed. What I'm going to do is, just to make this easy, I'm going to delete this. if you hit delete, it'll drop your rest. I'm gonna hold shift, click on these notes, and copy and paste. What I had to do in order to copy paste that is I had to click each note once I have it built, hold shift, command C, click on the rest that's in the next section, and hit command V so it'll take its place. Now, this is what it should sound like now that I'm done. Now, a couple things I can also do. Let's see, I think if we do... what we can also do here is we can... Oh, can we do it backwards? Oh, that's how we can do it. Might not be able to get away with this one. Let's see. Nope. All right, let me know when you got when you've gotten that far. I'm gonna save this real quick, and when you get a chance, take a break and save your Sibelius session. Now, again, the reason I'm building all these on C is because now once I have the rhythmic phrases, I can move these however I want to. So like if I elected, I could just copy paste this a couple times and do different things with this phrase. You know, I could just say, all right, well this, you know, I'm gonna have it go up and down. And then, of course, you could augment that whole thing. You could take that whole grouping up. Let's see, copy paste. Now, if you're highlighted on these notes or highlighted on the group of notes and you hit the up arrow or down arrow, it's going to shift the whole grouping. It'll stay in the key. So let's say I wanted to do copy paste here. I'll do one more, copy paste here. And now my phrase set. If I start over here, sorry, I'm going to highlight this and hit play from selection. Right, one more will round out that grouping so that it's a nice little phrase. So. And now it could start from the beginning if we wanted it to, right? Now, notice the difference. All I did was add that dotted, instead of having it just be eighths, straight eighths, I made a dotted eighth in the middle of the phrase. Do me a favor, go ahead and if you haven't already, go ahead and do that with your phrase. So all you're gonna do, you can make whatever arpeggio you want after the fact, but make your rhythm so it's a dotted eighth with a 16th, and then 2 eighths, a dotted eighth with a 16th and 2 eighths. And if you do the first one, you could just, again, click on them, hold shift, copy, paste, hit command C, drop it over here, hit command V, away you go. Right? Let me just get you that far, because the next thing I'm going to show you is a little. I know, it's the keypad is jumping from all your other DAWs. This is probably the most, Sibelius has to be the most frustrating one to learn, because the toolbar just is not, it does a lot of weird reactive stuff. So just don't forget, when you get stuck, Mike, hit escape. It'll drop you out of that so that you can click on the notes instead of dropping notes on the scale. And then, oh, okay, so what you did, Mike, what you did is down below. See where the, actually hit 0 on your keyboard, on the keypad.
Mm-hmm.
So do it again, you'll see where it lights up on screen. Here, do it again one more time. Oh, it's not showing on screen. Actually, deactivate. Here, go over to the keypad. Okay, right there at the bottom where the 0 would be. I don't know if you kind of see where the 0 would be. It's that bigger square. Down. No, down below.
This one.
Left. Down. What that does is when you click on that, it puts a rest in there instead of the note.
Okay.
So if that's ever highlighted, it's dropping the rest instead of the note. Go hover over the measure again. Is it showing a note? It's showing a note now, right? Yeah, now it's ready to rock with notes, but before it was highlighted with the rest, that's why I dropped all those rests in instead. Now, again, if you guys understand this, and now that you're kind of getting the hang of it, you understand you could go ahead and make more phrases. So once you created once you created the rhythm for this phrase, go ahead and make an arpeggiated form. Outline whatever chords you want. All it has to do, the only requirement for this when you're making these arpeggios is they have to repeat. So like in a single phrase, it should repeat once. It could repeat more than once because there's enough notes to make it repeat 4 times, but make it at least repeat one time, so that it's just playing twice.
All right.
Go ahead, and once you do that, I would copy paste the phrase. Go ahead and make 4 sets of phrases. Mine changed each time. I just raised it each time, so that each arpeggio grouping went up. Yes, question?
Yeah. How, like your bottom is not like, I don't have anything at my bottom on mine.
Let's see. Oh, you mean like that timeline thing?
Yeah, like where the 3 is and all of that right there. Like at the
Oh,
bottom.
it's because you haven't spilled into the next measure yet.
Oh, okay.
As soon as you add, see where the double bar is at the far right?
Yeah.
That's the end of the song.
Okay.
As soon as you copy paste beyond that, it'll just keep adding bars, and then you'll have a section down below. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, go ahead and copy paste that phrase and start. Go ahead and copy paste your arpeggiated phrase and start making. I essentially want 4 measures of arpeggiated phrase. Don't include the first one that we did. So essentially, you'll have 5 total, but starting from here, you'll have 4 measures. You could do what I did. All I did was copy paste the same phrase, and then I highlighted the group of that measure, and each time I went up, I took them either up or down, and you could do all sorts of different variations of it. Again, I'll show it to you one more time while you guys are doing that. So let's just say I took this phrase. I'm going to take it down one more. When you need to add bars, guys, if once you hit that double bar, if you go home on the home ribbon at the top, there's a thing where it says add, and you can add bars, and you can add multiple or irregular bars, and just say like, you know, I'm just going to add like 20 bars to the end here just to cover me, and then you can start using those. So I'm just going to copy paste this. Raise your hand if you have any questions, okay?
do you select it? Push select
Which way?
to select the measure.
The whole measure. You
Yeah,
could just click like.
so I can play it.
Oh yes. So like two ways you could do it. You could just tell it to play from start if you hit the back button, or if you highlight the measure, go to the play. There's a drop down and it'll say play from selection. The hotkey for play from selection is the letter P on your keyboard.
Do I need to reopen it or this automatically links up to this to hear it in my phone?
You just need to tell it. No, it won't not on the external device unless you tell it to. There's a way to configure it in the. I would save it real quick. Make sure you save it before you do this. So save it somewhere. Make sure where you keep it somewhere you can gain access to it because you're going to need it. Let me know when you save it. I'll show you where to configure the routing.
Okay, where do I save it to?
Wherever you want to save it. Do you bring your hard drive? If you could save it to your hard drive, or you could save it to the external drive on that computer. You know, wherever is good for you. Just somewhere you can gain access to it, like next week or wait, what's today? Monday? Yeah, Wednesday.
All right, let's save.
Awesome. Okay, what you can do is go to play, the play ribbon at the top.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to setup down this little setup icon right here. It should say down at the bottom, audio engine options. Bottom left, you see that? It's like here. It's down here.
All right.
Did you get to this window?
Yes.
So audio engine options, you're just going to choose your interface. If it doesn't show, it means you need to toggle the inbox on and off real quick. Mine doesn't show because it needs to be retoggled.
All right, it shows now.
Yeah, okay. Now, does it play? Are you hearing it? Again, if you select the measure, you can hit P.
It's not playing. Select the measure. Okay.
What's the audio output? Yeah, you should have something on it. Move to oh wait, here. Try it again. It's not rolling.
Maybe it's not plugged in.
No, it's here. It wouldn't have shown on the list. Try headphone 2, but hit P again and see if it'll, or you can do play from selection. Oh, it's not rolling. It's hot. It's not playing in Sibelius for some reason. Hit spacebar. No, hold on. Hit Command S real quick. Make sure you get saved. Something's up with it. It's just not moving at all. Just try something. You know what? Here, let's save it and see if we. Oh, that's why. Somehow that was still open. Is it on there now?
It was for a second.
Oh, okay. I think it's just because it moved beyond the bar. Let's try this
Why is it so low?
one. I think it's still not playing through it. Oh, hold on. I bet you what happened was it was in that window. I hit cancel or close. Maybe it didn't. That's why it's not showing. Did you choose this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's the aggregate's still internal. Hold on, let me see. Let me reboot your. I think the Where did you save it to this external hard drive?
No, I've saved to the desktop.
Okay, just make sure you move it before
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
done there. But let me reboot that and see if close this window and reopen it. Close it and then reopen the audio engine and see if it shows on the list.
Close this.
No, open that one. You could actually, I think it'll show. Go back to that drop down list and see if it's on there now. That's really weird. I mean, it is connected. Unless it's. Oops. But it's usually if it shows, if that the light up here is just blue.
Let me just close it out completely and I'll just reopen it. Maybe it's just because I.
Yeah, I mean, worst case, you just connect to the back of the computer. That's fine. If it doesn't show up. Sorry about that. We're gonna take a break in a few minutes. Let's get through this one thing here, and you guys working on making your additional phrases, right? You're making your additional phrases, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hey, Paul. Is there an email? I got an email from your online instructor. Guess they're trying to reach you. Is there an email I can forward this to?
Yeah, Paul and Kiss. I was just going to talk to you about the online class after during break.
How do I select 4 instruments
It's
at once when I'm in that window?
shit.
Oh yeah, shift. You talking about in the
It's not doing it.
wait? What instruments?
You know, like when you open up the
Oh yeah, but you saved the session, right? So you shouldn't have to redo the. Just go to open at the bottom left. There should be like something that says open. See it? In the window, in that dialog window, it should have had to give you the option to just open, or you could just quit that or close that and just go to File, Open, and you should be able to go back to the one that you had. Sorry, was there something wrong with that class?
No, I was going to talk to you about was somebody, but I can't get into the online class.
Oh,
Like I try signing on, click on the class, and it tries to load it up, and it just logs me out.
okay.
It says to hit up maintenance, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna have to send you to somebody there. What's your email address? Let me email this to you.
Paul M Castillo 11 at yahoo.com.
Yeah, I would email your instructor and let them know what's going on, and then I would try to get. Let me get the. I'll get the email or the phone number and I'll send it to you, or I'll write it down for you.
Okay.
All right. Mike, did you get back in?
Yeah.
Awesome. Did it play through like you wanted it to?
Yes.
All right. Are you building your phrases now then?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. I'm working with Paul. I'm trying to see where I can find this.
Hey, could you show me real quick what I need to have selected on this to make the bar connect? Because sometimes it throws it on the same like this this eighth, a 16th note.
Huh?
Is this an eighth or 16th note?
That's an 8.
That's an eighth. Okay.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. It's a dotted 8. Oh, that's a problem. It's because you left your dots on. So you got to take the dot off when you go. Okay, so go to the next. Go to this note here. The second note. Click on it, and then click on it again. I think you actually on it right click. Deactivate the dot. Okay, there you go. And then for all those other ones that weren't supposed to be dots, like you can look at my phrasing and figure out which ones were supposed to be dots. But it like when you activate the dot, if you keep adding dots, it keeps trying to add that half value to everybody. It screws up all the timing. Does that make sense? So you just think once you get that kind of fixed, I think it'll fix it for you because it looks like you dotted pretty much all these guys down here. So if you replace them with, and what you can do is if you're noticing like when you're doing that, it's having to choose which half of it is.
See how it all puts on the same line?
Yeah, that's because you've overlapped. That's what happens if you add multiple notes on the same like when you're in the same lane, like up and down vertically. So you have to just make sure you're off to the side. So you might want to. What I would do is start by going back. I would start on this one because I think that 16th is what's throwing everybody's phrase off. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And then there you go. And then you can just write over top of those other ones. Oh, hold on, back up, undo it. Somehow you split the bar. Was this one supposed to still be?
No, I was trying to create another 4.
Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, switch to 16th real quick. The 16th note. This one's supposed to be the 16th, that second note, because of the dot, because it takes away. That's why it's trying to make it the one at the end. There you go. And then go back to the 8th. I know it's the downside to the way this is done. It's like if you get one note off, you have to go back in and rewrite over top of it. And then don't click on it. See how it's like forcing you there?
Yeah.
I think if we hit. Oh yeah, I actually hit. There you go. I just hit that right arrow.
So then if I hit right here.
Yeah, then that should be. Oh wait, although as soon as I took deselect the rest, yeah, then you can go put the note back over on top of the rest. It's got so many weird quirky. Oh, except hold on. Undo it. I think it's supposed to be an 8th, right? That one's supposed to be an 8th.
Yes.
There you go.
So I need to make two 8ths to make those 16. Right?
Exactly. Well, no, yeah, 2 8ths to make the quarter note. Once you hit one more 8th, you've fulfilled the measure. Except why the heck is it doing that? Undo it real quick. For some reason, it's forcing you to. Yeah, here, just click on it. It's forcing you to have a 16.
Do I need to have anything selected up here that?
No, but you know what? Maybe it'd be cleaner to do this. Hit escape for me, and then hold shift.
Mm-hmm.
Hit. I'm just gonna hit delete, and then I'll try to get you to start from there. I think that might fix the situation because I think the other notes were kind of getting in the way. Yeah, there you go. Now that's the phrase we're gonna repeat. So hit escape. And then click all 4 of those. Just hold shift. Click all of them. No, not the whole measure though. The hit escape. Do the note by note. So hit escape again. Mm-hmm. Click note, like first note, hold shift, and then the next note. Like, but do them right on the note head. Hit escape again. It'll jump you out of it. Like right on the note head, right where the round part is. Yeah. Click it. Hold shift. Keep and then get the other 3. Yeah, there you go. Now hit copy. And then select the rest, and then hit paste. Bingo. And then that's your phrase. And then there you can just select the whole measure and copy paste it down the way, and you're going to augment that phrase with the arpeggio written, however you want that. Just make sure you save that as you go. You guys have saved, right? Paul, you saved? Okay. Okay, I just want to do one more thing, and then we'll take a break for a little bit. The one more thing I want to do here is I want to expound upon the idea here a little bit, and I want to take this up to the next notch. Okay, so if we were to now, we just did eighth notes and we did dotted eighth notes. What I want to do is 16th notes, and I'm going to switch to 16ths, and again, I'm going to, I'm literally going to put them all on the same note for now, just to kind of get the ball rolling here. Oops. Now, again, how many do I need to fulfill the measure? Quite a lot, right? How many? 16.
16.
Yeah.
Alright.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this measure just so you can hear it. All right, now, so it's going to move pretty fast. So all I'm doing is just doing 16th note phrases. How'd it go? You guys good? Mike, were you able to get through that?
Yeah, but for some reason when I'm trying to select, I always have to hit escape, right?
Yeah. What do you selecting the bar or the note by note?
No, because I was trying to select all of them so I could play it, monitor it. But
Okay, so you guys got the fast. You hopefully did some of these fast phrases. Where are they? These guys. All right. So now we've kind of gotten those arpeggiated frameworks for this in Sibelius. I'm going to throw in an extra rhythm here, and this is a little more complex. What I'm going to do is actually let me undo this. Well, it's an interesting mix of 16th to 8th, and this is what it sounds like. And if I slow it down tempo-wise just a touch, let's see, go to. So I'm going to write this tempo marking that you see here. Essentially marks out how fast you're going. So let me try something slower. Oops. Oh, a little too slow.
Let's try that.
All right, so you can see the interesting combination of the way this is going to go. Like it's 16ths, 2/16ths, 2/8. Notice it's 2/16ths, 2/8, and then 2/16ths, 2/8. But because it's 3 instead of 4, it's like a pattern of 3 instead of a pattern of 4. Or I should say it's a pattern of 4, but the problem is that they're only allowed to be mapped out in groups of 3 because there's 2/16ths in the pairings. It makes it feel a little weird, but this is what it should play like. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to copy it, paste it down in the cello. And actually, you could do this with all of yours. Paste it down in the cello. I'm going to drop it down the octave. Now, there's a couple ways to do it, but the easiest way here is just use a down arrow. Okay, well, there's that. But what we can do with this is you can kind of hear how it sounds, kind of, you know, a little bland. What we're going to want to do is tell this stylistically to play with some sort of style sense instead of just straight out the way that it is. And let me just find this spot. Down here if you look up on the notation section, there's a drop down for symbols. What we were able to do is we could actually tell it to play more staccato. So, you know, there's all these articulations. I might do, these are up, down, up and down bow, up bow, down bow. In terms of the bowing pattern, I think I might do, let's see. I'll do staccato. It should let me. Maybe it's not going to let me do it for the full phrase. Let's see. Might be a little too tight. Try marcato. Let's try it with these.
Almost sound like Rocky.
Right. So you're seeing just like this rhythmic phrase. I'm just going to do one more rhythmic phrase here and drop it down. You know, so essentially we're able to kind of manipulate and copy paste these. What I'm doing is I just added a little bit of accenting here, but I dropped it down in the octave. What we could do with these, in addition to these, is we could also say, all right, well, I like all of them, and I wrote them all. I wrote them all in. I wrote them all in the violin part, but I do want them down in, moved down into the cello part. So I just did a cut, paste. I'm going to just drop the octave and let it roll. And actually, I could marcato all of these. It's in the cymbals here, section here. It's this little item, but let's take a roll. So far, arpeggio-wise, looking good. Now, what we could do with the styles is we could tell, because even though we did it in marcato, we could tell it that it from a performance style. If we see where it says over here in the text, it says styles. We could tell it to have a certain performance style. Notice we could use pizzicato technique down here, down below. This is kind of like the short form of some of these techniques. But let's say we did these in pits. Although I don't know why I just did it that way. See if it took it. So it switched the entire performance style. So like the marcato means how it's played lengthwise, but the actual technique, whether they're using a bow, how they're using the bow, whether they're using it, in this instance, pizzicato is plucked. Which is why it sounds the way it does. But there are a couple other styles you could use. So let's say we decided, oh, we're not going to use this. Let's go and try. Let's try something else. What do we got here? Oh, although I don't know. I'm sorry. I think what happens is. Okay, so the one. Okay, the one weird thing is this technique, you could use Command T, I guess, to throw it in. What it doesn't show is this doesn't give you the rest of the listings of techniques. You actually have to kind of know them. So like if you were to, let's say, I think it's, just Google string techniques. What you do in here is you're going to have to type it in just like you would tell it. And again, this is kind of like the benefit to having it in using the engine from Sibelius is that it'll follow whatever technique markings you give it. So let's just say this one is Sol Ponticello. Let's give it a whirl. And it's just how it's essentially how it's played. You could also choose something like legato, although it kind of goes against the marcato form that I did here. But if I triple click this, it'll pick that whole group up. So if I wanted to tell it legato instead, I could just type it in. See if it'll do tremolo. Oh, it does. Tremolo is just back and forth real quick on the single note. Let's try this one, spiccato. Oops. Let's give that one a whirl. No, that didn't take it. There's another one, con Lego. I don't know if it'll even represent the note on this though. Or legno. Nah, it didn't represent. Tele. Let's try this one. Yeah, not really is. But essentially, like the arpeggiated form here. I mean, it took us a while to get there because we were kind of walking through it step by step. But ideally, like when it comes to all right, we need to build an arpeggiated phrase. You're really able to just jump in and go like when you go back to the note. Let's just say you wanted to drop in an arpeggiated phrase. I want to get out of this just for a sec. You really could just go and drop some notes in. And say, although this one's going to go here. And there you are with your phrase, right? I mean, like, it's that. I mean, less than 60 seconds, you have your arpeggiated phrase. And then you can just build off of it, rhythmically. The beauty of the notation is that you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to take the time to perform it, right? You're hearing, like, the difference in that. When we jump over, we're going to take a break. When we jump back after the break, we're going to go to Reason and do the arpeggiated form. I like using arpeggiations in Reason because you can be a little more creative with it, but it's also very stringent. So it has more flexibility on what you play. It has less flexibility on how the rhythms are because, like, notice, see how we did these rhythms, these arpeggios, like this arpeggio form. And the one before it are a mix match of different styles or tempos of notes, essentially, or subdivisions of notes. So we have both 16ths, dotted eighths, and eighths all in the same phrase. It's a little harder to do that in Reason. Now again, the sounds in here aren't the greatest. Whereas, you know, there are other, in your DAW, you're going to be able to find a little bit more ability to make it sound more realistic. But again, when you have a real musician play this, it'll get that life back. Let's go ahead and take a 20-minute break. Let's come back at 10:40. And then we'll jump back into developing these phrases and work